the National Formula Ford Championship with Avon Tyres. You see us here at Croft Circuit in a beautiful sunshine in North Yorkshire. Ross Martin currently leads the championship and he's put it on pole position. However, second in the championship is Spike Colbecker. He's put it on 4th place on the grid. Spike put it on 4th place on the grid. Firstly, you want to say Happy Independence Day, but 4th on the grid is not where you want it to be.
Yeah, it's an okay start. We got a bit to work to do in this race, but other than that, we're pretty happy where we are. I think we're about 4 points behind Ross right now. He's doing a good job. My team's doing a really good job keeping the car in shape, and we're finding little kinks here and there. And I'm still learning the track, but we're hoping for a good result this race.
Yeah, you've got to be there or thereabouts. Like you said, you're only a few points behind. The circuit's just been resurfaced as well. This is the first time you've been here. How do you find it?
I think it's a really nice circuit, actually. Even though it doesn't have very slow speed stuff, it's still a great circuit. And it's just amazing.
Well, good luck. Hopefully we'll see you on the podium, at least. Good luck.
Thank you.
Cheers, Spike. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, buckle up. It's going to be something special. Scott, over to you.
Thanks, Anthony. Cars on the grid here for race number 1 at a very sunny Croft circuit in North Yorkshire, with championship leader Ross Martin on pole position and James Clark alongside him on the front row. Rory Smith and Spike Colbecker make up row 2 ahead of McLennan and Brendan Lee, with an all Kevin Mills third row. Jonathan Brown and Carter Williams making a return in 8th place ahead of Jamie Sharp and Jamie Thorburn. Michael McPherson and Aaron Jeanson make up row 6 from John Svensson and Morgan Quinn. French Formula Ford star Adrien Laysac is 15th on the grid alongside Adam Quartermain, with Nicole Woods at the back of this 17-car grid here for race number 1. But the 5-second board is up. We've got a multitude of onboard cameras as usual, with several cars on the grid, including Spike Colbecker starting back in 4th. Red lights go up and race number 1 here at Croft is underway. Decent start from the front row of the grid. James Clark already grabbing in gear to try and take the lead from Ross Martin on the sprint down towards Clairvaux, looking down the outside of the Scotsman. That's Spike Colbecker battling in 3rd place with a good start from row 2, but into turn 1 they go, and it is Team Dolan man Ross Martin in the lead from James Clark in 2nd place. Here's the onboard view from Neil McLennan. Great forward-looking shot as he sits in 5th position from the start, after having started on the 3rd row of the grid alongside his teammate Brendan Lee. Spike Colbecker already up to 3rd place, watching his teammate James Clark, who isn't wasting any time at all. He's going down the outside of race leader and championship leader Ross Martin for the lead of the race already into Tower Corner, but he gets edged out wide, and this could give all the opportunity for Spike Colbecker. We're riding back on board with Neil McLennan, and it is going to be Cliff Dempsey cars side by side for 2nd place. They're going wheel to wheel through the Jim Clark S's, and as we look forward from James Clark's car, Spike Colbecker is up to 2nd place. So Ross Martin continues to lead through this first lap, but Colbecker is up to 2nd. Clark is 3rd, and looking for 4th up the inside goes Neil McLennan on Rory Smith, but couldn't get past the BM Racing man as again the Cliff Dempsey car's going to combat. And once again, Colbecker holds on to the advantage, but now he finds himself under attack from both McLennan, who's pushing him down the back straight, with now Rory Smith to his outside into the complex for the first time. So an all-action first lap up the inside, and the move completed for 4th position for Rory Smith. And here comes James Clark trying to fight his way back through. So after starting in 2nd position on the grid, could be down to 5th if he's not careful. That's Michael McPherson, and there's contact with John Svensson by the looks of it. And look at the left front suspension, clearly damaged. And Michael McPherson puts his hands up and think, well, what was all that about? So sadly, Kevin Mills' effort in this race has gone down from 3 cars to do in the space of nothing. That's a real shame for Michael. He was hoping to make some great progress this weekend, but he hasn't started off in the best possible way. Back on board with James Clark now, looking at the back of Rory Smith as they turn out through the S's onto the back straight once again. Clark grabs another gear, and you can see now that Smith is starting to tail the back of Colbecker here as they head up towards Tower Bend. Martin already trying to break out a lead here as diving up the inside for 2nd place goes Rory Smith. He edges Colbecker out wide. If he can get the momentum, he might try and put himself alongside, but it's only going to bring James Clark back into play as he forces the issue up the inside line into the Jim Clark S's. We saw the 2 Cliff Dempsey cars go side by side into the first part of that complex, but I think Clark realised he didn't want to do it 2 laps in a row and has to sit back in 4th, and now again come under attack from Neil McLennan into Sunny Inn for the 2nd time. There is Neil McLennan's view forward. Just behind him is his teammate Brendan Lee, the double F1 esports champion, currently contracted with Mercedes esports team, and in his first full season of circuit racing in cars. Oops, that's Nicole Woods off the road. She's one of our rookie drivers this season, and the BM Racing youngster who is more accustomed to a different kind of horsepower, competing on horses, is getting used to her first season of car racing and learning the hard way. So James Clark now up another gear, out of the hairpin to start another lap. Ross Martin is checking out in the lead already as they head on to another lap as they sprint down towards Clairvaux. James Clark now again thinking to look at on the outside line as Smith is trying to hold on to that third position if he can. But James Clark is in a bit of a catch-22 situation here because he's got to keep one eye on Rory Smith in front and one eye behind him on that man, Neil McLennan, just behind in the white and blue Kevin Mills Racing Spectrum. Clark is now going into attack mode as he forces Smith to go to the inside line. He tries to prise the door open down towards Tower Bend. Colbecker holds on to second place and sweeps across the nose of Smith as they turn into the right-hander. As they come out of it, it's still as it was before. McLennan is getting as close as he's ever been now to the back of James Clark. Into the Jim Clark S's, the 4 cars battling over those top 5 positions go left and then right all over the curbs on the exit. And now the sprint through Barcroft, the flat-out right-hander, and back into this double apex right of the sunny corners. A little wide on the apex there for Colbecker. McLennan tried to look up the inside of Clark, but again, the young Englishman gets through. That's Adam Quartermain, meanwhile, behind them. He's gone for a spin. And thankfully, stops on the grass, doesn't hit anything, and should be able to restart that car and get it back in. So here comes McLennan, back down the outside line, forcing Colbecker to go defensive into Tower Corner. But we know how sometimes the grip is a little bit risky offline if you turn it into the apex of the corner and find there's a bit of dust or dirt or some rubber or marbles off the circuit which could cause a problem. McLennan was trying to go side by side with Jim Clark S's, couldn't quite get it done. Now we look back to second place. James Clark has it, Rory Smith wants it, and you can see how much he's pressuring him. Back with our fantastic battle here between Spike Colbecker and Neil McLennan. And Spike really has just adapted to Formula Ford racing in the UK very well. He's experienced after racing before in Canada and New Zealand in very similar chassis and very similar engines. And he's certainly taken to the national scene here in the UK like a duck to water and has already got 1 race victory to his name after picking up the victory in race 2 at Snetterton at the very start of the season back in April. It was very similar conditions in Snetterton than it was here. Rather baking hot conditions. It's not putting off Rory Smith as he looks down the outside of James Clark. This is Brendan Lee, who I think has lost the place to Jonathan Brown. As behind that, he's now got more to worry about here because down the outside goes Jamie Sharp in the Team Dolan car. Jamie Sharp, the former British F4 racer turned Formula Ford driver. He's now made up another spot. So Brendan Lee's pace in the first half of the race is fading a little bit here in the closing stages. Back with Neil McLennan, just weaving this way and that, trying to keep in the slipstream of Spike Colbecker as much as he can. Again, looks to the inside line. We've had this before with Rory Smith up the inside. Spike Colbecker has to let him go. He's going to go side by side on the exit, or maybe not. Because Spike Colbecker finds the grip and the confidence he needs to stick the car around the outside line and deny Neil McLennan the position. He's over 4th place, but again, if they carry on battling like this, it's only going to hold them up further. They're almost side by side through Barcroft and into the sunny complex. Again, Spike Colbecker sweeps across the nose of the Kevin Mills Spectrum and remains in 4th place. Out through the right-hander onto the back straight towards the complex. There now is Jamie Sharp, and he is on the back of Jonathan Brown straight away. So I think Brendan Lee, either he's made a mistake somewhere or is possibly suffering a bit of a mechanical problem, which is a real shame after such a strong opening first stint in this race. It looks as though that mechanical dramas might be getting the better of the double F1 Esports champion, but they're not getting the better of his teammate here, who is still harrying the young American Spike Colbecker from St. Louis for 4th position. Past the camera, down towards Clairvaux they go once again. Under brakes, turn it in through the right-hander. Can Colbecker hold on? Slightly tighter apex through Clairvaux and into Hawthorns again. Just let the car drift all the way through the exit and then clip right and then left all the way through the chicane. Meanwhile, James Clark is having to defend as well because look at his mirrors. There is the red and white car of Rory Smith looming large. Where's he going to go? And again, he thought about pulling off a similar move to that which he tried to steal away from Spike Colbecker, which did work in the end. He did get past Spike, but they both lost out to James Clark in the end. Now here's McLennan, who is giving Colbecker a real headache down towards the Jim Clark S's. Again, he tries to go up the inside to get the inside line for the second part of the S's, but just can't squeeze himself alongside him at the right time. Up through Barcroft, into Sunny, the corners now once again. And they're going wide is Spike Colbecker. Colbecker goes wide. All the pressure's paid off. He's capitulated up at the Sunny complex. Colbecker runs deep, and Neil McLennan is straight through. And as one Cliff Dempsey car loses a position, the other one could be about to do the same. As down the outside line goes Rory Smith, and now a lock-up for Spike Colbecker. So all the pressure starting to get to him here. He's lost his rhythm. and he's lost out to his teammate Jonathan Brown as well. So Spike Colbecker is down to 6th position. So it's all happening here for the Cliff Dempsey cars. At 2 swap positions, both of them have both lost out to their rivals. As Clark again looks back down the inside line, Smith squeezes the door. You're going to go side by side. He puts a wheel onto the grass and just about slots back in behind the BM Racing driver. And Rory Smith has been a top driver at Northern level in Formula Fords, but he really has adapted to the national scene since last year incredibly well. And he has a race victory to his name already. He won the first race of the season at the first race at Snetterton. And he's just showing just how quick he is at national level here, fending off James Clark, who made a sensational debut for Cliff Dempsey Racing here at Croft last year. And he really is living up to the pace which he showed ever since then. Out of Tower Corner, onto the short straight towards the Jim Clark S's. There is still an opportunity here for James Clark to squeeze back through into 2nd place. These two at the moment will be on the podium, but in which order remains to be decided, because Rory Smith has that 2nd place again. James Clark wants to basically finish where he started. He was on the front row of the grid alongside Ross Martin, who still leads this race, by the way, but an absolute canter up at the front of the field. We haven't seen too much of him because there's been so much going on behind him for 2nd place downwards. There's not been time to look at him. Look at that, James Clark sells the dummy into the complex, looks down the outside line. Can he sweep across and take the 2nd place back again from Rory Smith down the outside? Can he ever? That was a great dummy move. He did the switch back, the bait and switch into the first part of the complex, and James Clark is back into 2nd place, probably much to Rory Smith's annoyance. Onto the pit straight once again. Now it's Rory Smith's time to try and make a move here for 2nd place. The hunter becomes the hunted, because now it's James Clark's turn to feel the pressure from Rory Smith. They're wide on the exit over the curbs. Meanwhile, up at the front, this is the man who is leading the race from start to finish, it seems. Ross Martin in the ex-Niall Murray 1999 Van Diemen. It's such a well-sorted car, and it really is serving him well here as he's cantered off in the lead. But this scrap for 2nd place continues to wage on between James Clark and Rory Smith. Smith is going back down the outside again. Clark has to try and show him the door and show him the exit curve if he can to try and hold on there, but it might not be enough as Rory Smith has found enough grip somehow to get the inside line for the first part. The Jim Clark S's, they're going to go side by side again. Can Clark stay there? They make contact, they touch, they lock wheels. Rory Smith goes wide off onto the curb, but he runs wide over the AstroTurf, goes back onto the circuit, still in 2nd place somehow, then gets around the outside into Sunny Inn and makes the move stick. That was a brave bit of driving from both drivers. And somehow they've managed to come through pretty much unscathed, apart from a bit of a clip of wheels. That was incredible racecraft, and kudos to both drivers for holding on. Now what's interesting is Neil McLennan now that he's dropped Spike Colbecker after the mistake, he's started to close in on this top 2 that are battling for the final podium places. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, a dominant performance from Ross Martin. He claims race 1 at Croft. The sprint from the line sees Rory Smith pick up 2nd place. James Clark takes 3rd, and it'll be Neil McLennan who picks up 4th position. There's confirmation of the result. Martin, Smith, Clark and McLennan. Jonathan Brown is 5th for Spike Colbecker 6th, and Jamie Sharp, Carter Williams, Jamie Thorburn and John Svensson. From Aaron Jeanson, Morgan Quinn, Adrian Laysack, Adam Quartermain, Nicole Woods, and Brendan Lee dropping back down the order with mechanical problems,
such a good race
finishing
out there,
in 16th place.
A
What a first race. Don't go anywhere because
really.
there's still 2 more of those to come right now.
Yeah, good start. Getting off the line was key. You know, I know the guys would be quick at the start and obviously wanted to try and push me, but going up towards Tower, James had a good run on me and I managed to hold the position. And then, like you said, you look in the mirrors and you see a battle happening. You just got to stay consistent. Put in the first maybe 3 laps is key. I think putting in quality laps is going to find the gap, and then obviously once I pulled that gap, it was all about just managing the tyres. The track's been obviously recently new surface, so obviously the lap times did come down compared to last year, but yeah, it's nice to go home with another win, another fastest lap, and it's just more consistency for the championship, really.
Congratulations on coming 2nd, started 3rd, but you had one hell of a battle out there.
Yeah, it was probably the closest race I've had in Formula Ford to date. Like, especially on the last lap, we were rubbing wheels at well over 115 miles an hour. So yeah, to come away with the 2nd was pretty good effort. I'm pretty pleased with that. It's a shame that Ross got away at the start, but unfortunately these things happen. I probably would have been able to give him a good go if I was with him, but hey ho.
James, talk us through that battle you were having.
It was pretty mental, to be honest. We were both quick at different points of the circuit, which meant that when I was in front, Rory would catch up at a certain place and be all over me, and have a bit more speed and trying to move, and then the same when he got in front of me. And it's surprising how much of a tow there was. I I wouldn't have thought this is a track that really lends itself to sort of slipstream racing. But every time you gap someone, the next corner they're getting a run on you, so you end up having to defend, which just backs you into people. So it just ended up as a bit of a dogfight between me and Rory. But it was fantastic. There was one little touch on the last lap, which that's just like when you're having that sort of battle, it's bound to happen. But like it was all respectful, and like he did a really good job, and obviously Ross did a very good job winning as well. But we just need to make sure it's a three-way fight next time.
Day 2 for the Avon Tyres National Formula 4 Championship here at Croft Circuit, and they start as they finish the last race. Now, I've quickly caught up this morning with Rory Smith, who's in second position, who says it's even more vital today that he comes up on the top step of the podium, but he's going to have to work extremely hard because Neil McLennan is absolutely determined he is going to win this. So let's see if he's got an attack plan in place. So Neil, what's the plan of attack for going into this race?
Hopefully try and make our way up. Yesterday was really tough. We made a mistake at the start, so that put us all the way back to 5th again. But no, we got back up to 4th, but there was too big of a gap from 2nd to 3rd, so we couldn't catch up in time. But today, just a different day to see what we can do, and yeah, try and make it way up to the top again.
Brilliant. Well, we wish you the best of luck in that. And on that note, we're going to hand it over to the commentator to run you through the rest of the action.
Thanks, Lindsay. Race number 2 about to get underway with the grid set as a result of race 1. So Ross Martin again starts on pole position with Rory Smith alongside him on the front row. James Clark and Neil McLennan make up row 2 from Jonathan Brown and Spike Colbecker. Jamie Sharp and Carter Williams back in 8th with Jamie Thorburn and John Svensson rounding out the top 10. Aaron Jeanson and Morgan Quinn make up row 6 from Adrian Laysack and Adam Quartermain, with Nicole Woods and Brendan Lee starting with the back of the grid in 16th place, and Michael McPherson, who retired early on after contact with John Svensson. So watch for the 2 Kevin Mills cars at the back of the field looking to work their way through. Here's the onboard shots from Ross Martin, along with several cameras here in this race, including Jamie Thorburn, Adam Quartermain and Neil McLennan. The red lights come up and race number 2 at Croft is underway. It's another good start from Ross Martin from pole position. A decent start from the second row also for Neil McLennan. James Clark is trying to squeeze himself alongside Rory Smith into second place, as he did for race number 1 earlier on yesterday. And into Clervaux for the first time with Martin leading the way. It's Clark into second place, Smith in third, and now it looks to be Spike Colbecker in fourth position, followed by Neil McLennan in P5. So these are the main front runners in yesterday's first race. And here's the onboard view once again from Neil McLennan as we turn up towards Tower Bend for the first time. Now, at the start of the first race, it was a challenge for the lead between James Clark and Ross Martin. Not so much this time. Everyone's a little bit more civilised as they turn into the right-hander at the end of the back straight. All over the curbs on the exit of both Rory Smith and Spike Colbecker, so they're not hanging around. Neil McLennan's in the mix as well, just tacking onto the rear gearbox of Spike Colbecker as they turn left and then right through the Jim Clark S's, and now powering their way into Barcroft on the first lap. Top 2 trying to break away, bit of a lock up there, I think possibly from Colbecker as they turn into Sunny in and then Sunny out. So all the exit curve as they turn their way through. Look at that, leading 7, funneling their way through. It's a good start also by the looks of it from John Svensson. He's battling nicely with what looks to be Jamie Thorburn. Up the inside was Neil McLennan. There wasn't a bit of contact between himself and Spike Colbecker. There almost is coming into the second part of the complex. But I think McLennan's got the line. Around the outside goes the young Scotsman and into what is now 4th position at the expense of the young American. So out of the hairpin for the first time. Jamie Sharp's had a good start as well. He's up now just behind Jonathan Brown as they head down the pit straight. But Martin leads the way. Clark second place. Then it's Rory Smith in third from McLennan. And this man, Spike Colbecker, who wants 4th place back. He'll look to the outside line. But McLennan covers it off well as they head up through Clervaux for the second time. And James Clark, as we've mentioned a couple of times already, hasn't yet won a National Formula Ford race. He's come close on occasions. He even started the race from pole position. That was at Alton Park, but that ended up at the first corner. So barely even got a chance to make an impact at Alton Park in many cases. But he's certainly trying to do as best he can to try and make that statistic change from 0 wins to 1. So up into Tower Bend for the second time. Still McLennan being chased down by Colbeck, a little wide in front of them from Rory Smith in third position, as they come down towards the Jim Clark S's for the second time. Colbecker with a nice effort here as he keeps nice and tidy, nice and close to McLennan, then draws himself in through Barcroft and up towards Sunny, and he might look for an attack here into the double apex right-hander. McLennan just touches the white line and just takes a slightly wider entry into the first part of this complex. And out of it they come again. Jamie Sharp's having a great run there. He's on the back of Jonathan Brown, as we said. He's getting a little bit closer. This is Jonathan. Just keep an eye on the mirror. There he is, look. That little white speck is the white nose of Jamie Sharp's car, which is predominantly sort of a crimson and black, but it's got a different coloured nose after. That's had one or too many excursions earlier on in the season. And turning into the hairpin, looks as though he's keeping pace with his teammate Colbeck, who is the de facto team leader in this race so far. James Clark holds in second place. Meanwhile, the Border Reivers team have got some trouble. Jamie Thorburn in the pit lane with mechanical problems on the number 50 car. Into Clairvaux forward is now the third time. Just four-wheel drifting in classic Formula Ford style. That is the Formula Ford way. Rather than just getting a bit of a slide on with two wheels, you drift all four at the same time. So that old school 60s single-seater racing is brilliant to watch. This is the onboard view again with Adrien Laysac. Again, French Formula Ford Championship leader with his first venture across the channel, racing here in the UK. It would be great to have him on the grid. He's certainly learning the hard way about just how tricky the National Championship is, but it's great to see him giving it a try outside of his native France. So we go back to our race leaders, and there is Ross Martin, and thankfully for James Clark, he hasn't got himself caught up with the battles for second place downwards with the cars behind. He's managed to get his head down and start to chase after Ross Martin, and this time Ross isn't really getting away and having so much of an easier time of it in the lead, back with the battle going on for what is now about 6th and 7th position between Jonathan Brown and Jamie Sharp as they turn out of Sunny out. So the three Cliff Dempsey cars are running well in what looks to be second, 5th and 6th positions as they sweep their way through the complex. There's Colbecker, Brown, and now again coming the threat from Jamie Sharp, who spent a couple of years, of course, the last 2 seasons racing in British F4 with his own team. He's joined with Team Dolan, the same team as the likes of Morgan Quinn and race and championship leader Ross Martin. He's certainly learning a lot. Made his debut for the team in the same car that this man, Ross Martin, is driving. As James Clark continues to harry him and possibly try and keep on the back of him through Clairvaux, through Hawthorns. And again, Jamie Sharp is continuing to apply the pressure. Lap after lap, corner after corner, he's trying to make Jonathan Brown capitulate if he can, but still, the Irishman is locked in 6th position. But for how much longer is he going to stay there? Because here comes Jamie Sharp. Look in the mirrors, you can see just tucked behind him, there he is, in the left-hand mirror. Jamie Sharp is a big lock up in front for second place. Go back on board with Neil McLaren, 4th place, chasing after Rory Smith as they swing through the Jim Clark S's again. Top 4 is pretty spread out here, but it's not as close as it was in the early stages of race 1. Here is one of our closest battles, still Jonathan Brown being pressured no end, corner after corner by Jamie Sharp. One of his better performances this weekend. He's had some decent runs, had a decent run out last time by Anglesey. But he's certainly showing a bit more turn of pace here, learning the tricks of the trade from Bernard Dolan. He's gone board Brendan Lee here. I think he's chasing after his teammate Micah McPherson by the looks of it. He goes diving up the inside into the complex. It's a nice simple pass if we can pull that one off. Back with our scrap for 6th. Jonathan Brown again being made to go defensive into the hairpin as they turn their way through the right-hander, through 180 degrees and back onto the pit straight. Martin still leads, Clark in 2nd place, and it's Smith. McLennan in 4th. We ride on board with the young Scotsman. Now towards Clairvaux once again. And here is that scrap for 6th between Jonathan Brown and Jamie Sharp. Jonathan Brown, the young Irishman, and Jamie Sharp, the young Englishman. Down the pit straight, up towards Clairvaux, back on board with McLennan. Just swings his way through Clairvaux, all over the curbs, through Hawthorns. You can see, look as well in front of them there, that was James Clark getting very sideways on the exit, just trying to put the power down. You can tell how hard he's trying to keep in front of these two, but Rory Smith, just in front of McLennan here, who we ride on board with once again, is just lurking onto the rear exhaust of Clark now, as he was in race 1. Look at the rear end squirming around on Clark's car under braking. Either that's possibly a bit of the brake bias setup that's been pushed a little bit too far towards the rear, or the tyres are starting to go off a little bit. Those Avon tyres possibly might be starting to get past their best after a couple of races worth. So again, McLennan sails up to the gearbox of Rory Smith, who in turn is closing on the back of James Clark through Sunny, and the three of them go together. No change in the order so far. 2nd, 3rd and 4th. 3 different teams, 3 different chassis. The Race chassis for Cliff Dempsey Racing, the Medina Sports chassis for BM Racing, and the Spectrum chassis for Kevin Mills Racing. 3 very different cars, 3 very different teams, but all very evenly matched, and that's the beauty of National Formula Ford Racing. It doesn't matter, arguably, which car you're in. If you're quick enough, you can be as quick as anyone else on the grid. So onto the pit straight they come again, and this time Rory Smith starts to put James Clark under pressure for the first time this race. There's a black and white flag going out for driving standards or track limits for someone in the order. As now looking up the inside for 2nd place, finally goes Rory Smith. He has a peek up the inside at Clairvaux. Sign place on the exit for James Clark, who is desperately trying to cling on for this 2nd place. but still Rory Smith continues to apply that pressure, but also so is Neil McLennan. He could benefit from the pair of them scrapping as they come onto the back straight, on towards Tower Corner once again. Is there a chance to get through here? Where's Smith going to go? To the outside, down towards Tower Corner. Looks like Clark will hold the car in the middle of the road. And if Smith's not careful, here comes McLennan up the inside line, the exit of Tower Corner. He'll squeeze himself wide on the exit and gets himself into third place. And he cuts the avenue off before they get to Jim Clark S's. And that was a really nice opportunistic pass there for Neil McLennan. Now it's his turn to start to apply the pressure and to have a crack at James Clark. Into Barcroft once again. Will he look to the inside line? Not quite. But now Rory Smith looks pretty fired up back in fourth place. He wants that podium place back again, if he can afford it. Here they go. Second, third and fourth all together. McLennan now, again, look at that, he's shoving the back end of James Clark again. He loves to do that to try and possibly, either as a bit of a distraction technique or to possibly try and get the car in front to go that little bit faster to try and make sure that both cars cut through the air almost as one. But either way, McLennan is certainly relentless in his attack here as they turn out of the hairpin. We're in the closing stages of the race now, so not long to go here with the second race at Croft. There's still one more race to go this afternoon. We head down the pit straight, and now McLennan has to go in defensive mode this time because here comes Rory Smith to reclaim third place. The red and white number 45 just slots back and holds back a little bit in the braking zone to set himself up for a better run through Hawthorn. Floppy marker goes for a Burton on the exit through the first part of Hawthorn there. I think that was McLennan clipped that. And floppy markers don't really cause too much trouble unless one gets lodged in the car, and that can start to upset the aerodynamics. I think the worst possible scenario is he gets lodged in the radiator, and that can really cause problems. Come down towards Tower Bend. Another lock-up from James Clark, proving how hard he's pushing. So again, possibly either he's adjusting the brake bias a bit too much in the car and it's starting to change the characteristics of the car's handling one way then the other. He pushes it more towards the front starts to lock up, puts them back towards the rear, and the rear end of the car is squirming around all over the place. But incredibly, looking into the distance there, that white speck in the distance there, that's still Ross Martin. So despite all this battling, he hasn't really pulled away that much more than he had done already before they started scrapping for second place. It's pretty interesting so far as they come to the closing stages, into the complex of what should be the final time by the looks of it. And still James Clark is holding on as they come up towards the hairpin. And the checker flag should be emerging any time soon now as they turn up into the hairpin. I think we could have possibly one more time around here at Croft as they head up towards the pit straight and down towards Clairvaux once again. So still Clark in second place, McLennan in third, and fourth place still. But there is the race leader Ross Martin continuing on his merry way, looking to take his second victory of the weekend, and he certainly is doing it relatively unchallenged here as they turn in through Hawthorns now. It looks as though we are on the last lap of the race this time by. So one more chance now for James Clark to hold on as much as he can from both Neil McLennan and Rory Smith. But there's the view which Ross Martin wants, that everyone wants. A nice clear track in front of him. No one around him causing too many problems. And all he can do is just look in his mirrors and sit back and laugh as he heads to the final half of this last lap of the race. Neil McLennan's attack will go right down to the last corner here as they turn through the Jim Clark S's. Here he comes, he's trying to line up a pass for second place. Clark puts himself in the middle of the road, up through Barcroft, in towards Sunny in for the last time. Is McLennan going to go for a dive? Not close enough to do so. Smith swept through into fourth position, trying to get through the apex of Sunny in as quickly as he could on the exit now through Sunny out. Now the sprint down towards the complex. Here goes McLennan down the outside line. One final attack into the left-hander, but he's not close enough to get it done. He switches back to the outside line to get the outside line for second place. He runs wide. There was contact. Threw up the inside for third place goes Rory Smith. I think there was a bit of a touch between both Clark and McLennan, but there's been no contact and no trouble whatsoever for this man. Ross Martin does the double. He's going to go for race number 3 later on this afternoon, but Martin takes a clean sweep of the first 2 races with Clark in second place, Smith in third, and McLennan holds out for fourth place. So confirmation of the result, Martin wins from Clark, Smith and McLennan, and Spike Colbecker in 5th and Jamie Sharp in 6th position. Jonathan Brown and Brendan Lee from the back of the grid in 8th. Then John Spencer and Morgan Quinn round out the top 10 from McPherson, Laysack, Quartermain, Woods and Thorburn. And Aaron Jeanston, Carter Williams, the 2 retirements.
Another flawless performance from yourself. I think you're becoming a bit adjusted to this top step.
Yeah, love this track. It's first time here, first time racing here. So yeah, really enjoyed my weekend. You know, I got the car off the line very strong, and I seen James making a move into Rory in turn 1. So I knew I had a little bit of a little bit of a gap going into the next few turns. But again, running up to the back, I knew I had some mirrors full, and yeah, it was just about getting consistent laps in, really. I didn't have to defend, so my first 3 laps were roughly, 3 or 4 tenths quicker than the guys behind me, so I knew that was key to find the gap. And then after that, just nursed it home. You know, I've seen them battling the last maybe 3 or 4 laps, which is nice to see in your mirrors, but obviously it makes great viewing for the spectators. But for me, definitely bringing it home safe was key.
James, that was one hell of a battle. You crossed the line 0.2 of a second ahead of Rory.
Yeah, that was one of the hardest races I've ever had because I was trying to chase down Ross, and he's obviously been so quick this weekend. And that was like 15 minutes of just flat out. And we were going quicker in that race than I was in quali. So like that shows just how hard we were pushing, but it also shows like how good a job Cliff Dempsey Racing have done with the race chassis, because it's obviously still lapping as quick as it was in quali. But yeah, it was hard when I was setting like my fastest times of the weekend, and Ross was pulling away, and Rory and Neil were catching me. And then obviously once they caught me, it was like I had 2 of them trying to pass me. So it was like every which way you looked, there was cars trying to overtake.
Congratulations from us. You must be thrilled. You took that opportunity and just ran with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good result in the end, because on the last lap it looked like I was going to come in 4th, so I'm pleased that I managed to grab the 3rd. Unfortunately, I couldn't get James. I tried. I spent half the race catching him. Once I got up to him, I tried to make the move, but I just couldn't make it stick. But that's how it goes sometimes. So yeah, third's pretty good.
3rd and final race here for the Avon Tyres National Formula 4 Championship, and the top 6 have been reversed, which means Ross Martin is down in 6th. Now, out of the top 6, there's only one that hasn't managed to come top step on the podium this year, and that is James Clark. Now, he's been hair length away so many times this year, so I'm quite interested to see if he can do this. All of them are capable, but is James going to be able to take the opportunities? Scott, what do you think?
Whatever happens, Lindsay, it's going to be a fascinating race, particularly with Jamie Sharp on the reverse grid pole position. He's got Spike Colbeck for company on the front row, with Neil McLennan and Rory Smith on row 2. Then James Clark and double race winner Ross Martin going for the hat-trick from 6th. Jonathan Brown and Brendan Lee make up row 8 from John Svensson and Morgan Quinn. Then Michael McPherson and Adrian Laysack from Adam Quartermain and Nicole Woods. Jamie Thorburn, Aaron Jeanston and Carter Williams all looking to come through from the back of the grid. So Jamie Sharp with a possible opportunity here to score a personal best result in the National Formula 4 Championship, but the cars behind him, including this man, Ross Martin, are going to be very hungry indeed. Neil McLennan all set for the start from row number 2. Lights out, and race number 3 at Croft is underway. It's a good start from poleman Jamie Sharp. We go right on board with Ross Martin, down towards turn 1, and immediately Sharp is under attack from Spike Colbecker, up towards Clairvaux for the first time, but the young Jamie Sharp has held his nerve, but held onto the lead through Clairvaux, through Hawthorns for the first time, and Jamie Sharp in the Team Dolan Van Diemen has done it. He holds on to the lead. So up through the complex, as the S's for the first time. There's Colbecker in 2nd place, McLennan starting from 3rd, and having a good start, making up a couple of places, appears to be Ross Martin. To head down towards the complex, and immediately Spike Colbecker doesn't want to wait around. He looks to the outside line to put the pressure on. Here comes McLaren looking for 2nd place on the inside, through past Colbecker. These two had quite a battle in the first race, and they're going at it again here now as they come up towards the Jim Clark S's. But he'll have to be careful, because looking behind him in his mirrors is going to be Ross Martin through the S's up towards Barcroft. There is Ross Martin, 4th place. He's right in the mix from the start of the race. He wants the hat-trick here this weekend. He's got 2 race wins. He wants the 3rd to complete the set. To do that, he has to get around both McLennan and Colbecker and even pass his teammate. McLennan down the outside lines, try and make a move on Colbecker. Looks one way, then the other, down towards the complex. As Barton looks up the inside line, tries to get through, storming up for 2nd place. That was a big move up the inside for 3rd position. McLennan goes wide, James Clark gets sideways on the exit, the 2nd part of the complex. McLennan comes back and then goes down the outside of Ross Martin. He might lose that if he's not careful. This is a really action-packed first lap. And also up well is Brendan Lee, actually. He's scrapping away with both Jonathan Brown and also Rory Smith. But look at the lead that Jamie Sharp has now, trying to pull away early doors in at the end of lap 1. Here's Neil McLennan scrapping away with one of his main title rivals, Ross Martin. He leads the championship after his 2 victories. He led the standings coming into the weekend. He will certainly lead them going out of the weekend. The question remains, though, can he drive his way back to the front? And can he possibly take the clean sweep of 3 victories from 3 races this weekend here in North Yorkshire? Remains to be seen, but here's James Clark also bidding for a victory. Like Lindsay said, he's one of the main top 6 runners here that hasn't picked up a race victory so far. And that's a stat he desperately wants to correct if he can, but he's sat back a little further back in the field than he wants to be. Here is Neil McLennan now looking at the back of Ross Martin in 3rd place, who in turn is chasing after both Spike Colbecker and of course his teammate Jamie Sharp, who of course is in the same Team Dolan stable as Ross Martin, so he'll certainly be learning as much as he can every step of the way, and all that knowledge and all that application of the tuition he's had all throughout his Formula Ford career so far is coming to bear fruit here at this point in time in the early stages of race number 3. We go back on board with James Clark, still chasing after the back of Neil McLellan's car as it dances around through the first part of the complex. And everyone's staying fairly line astern here. No one's really pulling out a big gap too much here. Ross Martin now looks for second place on Spike Kohlbecker, trying to get this bait and switch on the exits, try and get the undercut on the run out of the hairpin and down the pit straight towards Clairvaux once again. He'll stick in the slipstream down towards the right-hander. He's going to try and look inside or outside. Which way is he going to go? Decides to go to the outside line, even though Kohlbecker does try and ward him off if he can. Kohlbecker remains in front, even though Martin did think about possibly sneaking a move up the inside with a dive into Hawthorns. Now we go back with Neil McLellan in 4th place. He's looking pretty racy, but he's going to have a look at his mirrors because behind him is going to be James Clark. Then Ross Martin looking one way then the other. He starts to put a bit of a tandem sort of draft there. He's nudging the rear end of the car saying, come on Spike, get on with it, otherwise I'm going to be passed by the cars behind me. Through Tower Corner they go once again. So it's 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th all together. But remember, like it was in race 1, then McLaren again tells the cars in front, come on, get on with it, let's try and chase after the leader. Whilst all this battling's going on, Jamie Sharp is maintaining the lead on genuine pace here. This is fantastic to watch. Not so much for the 4 cars behind him. They're so engrossed battling each other, they're forgetting there's a car in front of them sailing off into the distance up the road. There he is, Jamie Sharp from Kohlbecker, then Martin, then McLellan, then it's going to be James Clark. And this scrap for 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th is continuing on the early stages. Up the inside for 2nd place with a big dive up into the complex goes Ross Martin. A great move for the championship leader. He's now into 2nd place and now makes it a Team Dolan 1-2. Now the question is, Ross Martin, is he going to have the ultimate pace to chase after his teammates? So McLellan up to 3rd now. Kohlbecker's down to 4th, so we lost 2 spots as a result of that. Martin's dive forced Kohlbecker to be a little bit offline, and that allowed McLaren to get back through. But how much long is he going to stay there? Because here comes Kohlbecker looking back to the outside line down towards Clairvaux. But McLaren sweeps across in the racing line and holds on to the position. Rory Smith is now in the mix as well. He's got past James Clark if he's managed to get through. And there is James Clark, in fact, now behind Rory Smith, who in turn is now starting to chase after his Cliff Dempsey teammate on the run down towards Tower Corner. So the race kind of, I was about to say calming down for a minute, but not for a moment. He's now looking down the outside line. That's James Clark off the road. James Clark is off the road and into the gravel trap and out of the race, and that is an awful situation. That is the worst possible scenario for James Clark. He went too hot, too deep into the corner, and his frustration is evident. He knows exactly what happened there. It was his own fault. Now, then, whether or not that'll be enough to warrant a safety car, it's pretty deep in the gravel trap, but it is at a bit of a precarious position at the end of a long straight in a very big braking zone. We'll have to wait and see what the clerk of the course decides to do. Either way, the racing continues on. They'll race until they see, if any, safety car boards and flags. But wait and see. Here's the replay. Now, I think he just got caught up by trying to go down the outside of Spike Kohlbecker, put 2 wheels onto the dirt, and the car just gets away from him, and he backs it into the gravel trap, and I'm afraid, James, that is not getting out anytime soon. And this is a replay further back, and this is a little bit further on in this race, as we now see this possibly looks to be the restart of the race, I think, after the safety car. Well, the safety car's been deployed, in fact, so the race now has been neutralised for the time being, so it wasn't the end of the safety car, it was just the beginning, my apologies. But after a very action-packed start to the race, a little bit of a chance for these drivers to catch a breather now, to try and keep the heat and temperature and pressures into the brakes and tyres. Or is Ross Martin going to possibly pick him off as quickly as possible? Remember that Ross Martin's in contention for the championship. Arguably, Jamie Sharp isn't. Whether or not Jamie will be that reluctant to let him through or not, well, that remains to be seen as they come back into the complex. And I think they've restarted pretty quickly already, so Jamie Sharp, I have to possibly admit, maybe hasn't ever done a safety car restart before, so I think he decided to go pretty early. He heads into the hairpin. He might even catch the safety car before they heads into the pit lane, which he almost has. He times it just about to perfection to come across the start and finish line. Green flag around the circuit, and race number 3 is back underway at racing speeds. And already you can see Ross Martin is challenging Jamie Sharp down towards turn 1, up towards Clairvaux. And that, in some ways, I don't know about you, but looked a little too easy there for Ross Martin. I suspect possibly that, not to do Jamie Sharp any discredit at all, but possibly that might have been a bit of team tactics there from Team Dolan to let Ross Martin go through, possibly because I think Jamie Sharp probably realised that Ross was going to be quicker, and the fact that he's mainly in contention for the championship, so didn't really want to hold him up too much. But if Jamie Sharp could hold on to a possible podium place, that would be a fantastic result. He might not get the chance, but he's under attack by Neil McLellan into Tower Bend now on this restart here on the exit. A bit of a shaky restart. He's let Martin through. He's let the floodgates open, but Jamie Sharp is putting up an absolutely strong defence into Jim Clark S's, and James McLaren will try and force the issue, but he can't get through, and Jamie Sharp says, "You shall not pass." And Jamie Sharp, after a bit of a shaky restart there, almost that big mistake at Tower Bend, almost opened the floodgates to let everyone else get back through. He seems to have recomposed himself and maintained his position ahead of Brendan Lee, but it might be Jonathan Brown instead if Brendan Lee can't defend this move into Clairvaux, which he does. Sweeps back to the racing line, all over the curbs on the exit of Clairvaux into Hawthorns. The young Irishman is giving the double F1 Esports champion a real work over here for 6th position. Jonathan Brown was doing this all race long in race number 2 earlier on, as they now head down towards Tower Bend once again. But it was Jonathan Brown doing the defending rather than the attacking, whereas Brendan Lee this time has to go defensive. But if he goes too deep on the exit, that may be Jonathan Brown's advantage. We go on board with Brendan Lee. He's just focusing on the rear end now of Jamie Sharp if he can get back onto the tail of him. If he can, a possible top 5 finish could be on the card. So that will be on the road. On the road, it won't be his best result because he got a 4th place on the road at Snetterton in the first race. Then a post-race penalty dropped him to 10th. But if he can get himself a top 5 in this final race of the weekend, it'll be his best overall result of the season. Looking a bit further back, it's Michael McPherson on the back of Carter Williams. Welcome back to National Formula Ford's Carter, being put under threat here from Michael McPherson. And Carter, part of the Oldfield Motorsport squad, so he's now with James Oldfield's guys. Of course, they were the team that won the Formula Ford Festival at the end of last year with Josh Smith. He's now moved on to become a junior McLaren driver and is racing in the British GT Championship in the GT4 class. And Niall Murray, who was the former owner of the currently leading 1999 Van Diemen with Ross Markham at the wheel, has also dabbled in GT racing. It looks like finds these days drifting this weekend in Ireland. The wheel of a possible, I think it's Nissan S13 Silvia. But that's drifting. This is Formula Fords, and here is Carter Williams still holding nicely ahead of Michael McPherson. These two will have had 1 or 2 battles last year when it was a more of a regular season thing for Carter Williams to race a Formula Ford. Spike Colbecker now trying to keep up with Neil McLaren for 2nd, 3rd and 4th position behind him, Rory Smith. Out through Tower Corner, up towards the Jim Clark S's again. And these are all the main championship contenders. Spike Colbeck, of course, needs all the points he can get to try and keep Ross Marsden in touching distance throughout the second half of the season. There are some very fast circuits coming up this year as they come up towards the complex at Barcroft through the right-handed kink, and this is Brendan Lee under threat from Jonathan Brown. Remember last time by it was the other way around. It was Jamie Sharp hassling Jonathan Brown. Now the boot's on the other foot. And it possibly could be a very different story this time by in race number 3. But they've got Brendan Lee's Kevin Mills Racing Spectrum chassis wedged in between them and not too keen on letting them through. So Brendan Lee continues his pursuit of Jamie Sharp, who still maintains 5th position. He's still doing very well indeed to hold on to the place. There's still Rory Smith in 4th place, just ahead of them. Out the hairpin they go. There's Ross Martin continuing to extend his lead. McLaren, then it's Spike Colbecker, Rory Smith, and then it's Jamie Sharp, followed by Brendan Lee and this man Jonathan Brown. As again the Irishman goes to the outside line, but again Brendan Lee covers it well into the entry of Clairvaux, over the curves into Barcroft, or Hawthorns. Barcroft's further around the lap. Haven't got quite there yet, but there's been plenty of battles and plenty of possible opportunistic passes into that later part of the circuit. Now exit through the S's on the back straight towards Tower Bend, and here comes Jonathan Brown. Brendan Lee has no choice to possibly go to the inside line. Brown tries to sell him a dummy, goes one way then the other, tries to go around the outside, but he was a bit ambitious, carrying a little bit too much speed into the entrance of the corner, got it anchored up, and has to remain behind Brendan Lee as they come up towards the Jim Clark S's for another time. Flat out through the left, then the right, over the curbs, over the exit curbs, they come towards Barcroft. Up towards Sunny End, Brown's lurking large in his mirrors. But again, he can't find a way through because he knows a dive up the inside there would have been completely reckless. It could have possibly ended the race for both of them. That's not what they want. They both want as many championship points to bank towards their tallies as possible. One thing's for certain, Brendan Lee is certainly running as the top rookie this season, of course. He's had a fantastic rookie season. Of course, started a couple of years ago when he debuted in the first ever F1 Esports. He became the first ever champion with the Toro Rosso Esports team, then got signed by Mercedes, picked up the 2018 title. He is due to defend his title again in 2019. But of course, he inquired with Kevin Mills Racing to see if he could have a go in one of their Formula Fords. Found he was pretty much on the pace, and from there he's pretty much shown fantastic progress ever since he stepped behind the wheel of one of these cars And certainly everything he's learning here will no doubt be helping his esports exploits no end, as Jamie Thorburn gets very sideways on the exit of Clairvaux, now under threat from another of the Team Derwent cars. We haven't really seen much of Morgan Quinn this season, but Morgan Quinn, former Ginetta Junior racer, his first season in Formula Fords, certainly doing everything he can to make an impression. He's certainly trying to do that on Jamie Thorburn, down towards the right-hander at Tower Bend, goes down the outside, but the young Scotsman holds onto the place, and just behind them, there is the top clubman runner, Belgian driver John Svensson. He's been a former Formula Renault Euro Cup 2000 racer in his past racing career. If you look back forward to this scrap for second place between Scotland's Neil McLennan and the American Spike Colbecker, looking back again now to between Jamie Thorburn, who still hasn't been able to shake off Morgan Quinn. A little deep in the first part of the apex as we go back to our scrap for second. Into the hairpin now for the final couple of times. And Ross Martin will be setting up possibly to complete the clean sweep here as they come up towards the hairpin into the complex. As Colbecker gets close, but he might not be close enough as they turn out to the hairpin. And the last lap board goes out then to Ross Martin now has one more time around the Croft circuit here in North Yorkshire to complete the triple. He has to get to the checkered flag first. It's not over until the flag falls. It's not over for second place either, because Neil McLennan's got a small couple of car lengths here on Spike Colbecker, but there is still time on this last lap to possibly close that gap in again. Out through the S's. Further back, here is that scrap continuing to go on onto the last lap between Jamie Thorburn, Morgan Quinn, and just behind them there is John Svensson. Now we switch to Brendan Lee, who is on the back of James Sharp, and this is for 5th position, remember. Sharp will again go to the outside line to defend the place. Can Lee get the switch back on the exit? He goes up through Tower Corner. Sharp runs a little wide, but he carries the momentum off of Tower Bend up towards the Jim Clark S. It could be a last gasp pass here for Brendan Lee if he's daring enough to make a move. Sticks close onto his gearbox to the Jim Clark S. He's up towards Barcroft for the final time. Which way is he going to go? Left or right? Brown is there to pick up the piece if anything happens. But he's not deep enough to get into the alongside him into the first part of Sunny. Into the second bar, he'll turn his way through the right-hander, but he might have left it too little too late. Colbecker, meanwhile, is trying to keep pace with Neil McLennan, but he's lost that. He lost the third place, in fact. Round the outside on the last lap goes Rory Smith, is still third place away from Spike Colbecker into the complex of the final time. Second, third, and fourth looks to be set as Colbecker takes one final dive up the inside line. But the checkered flag awaits for a dominant and fantastic performance all weekend from Ross Martin. He does the hat-trick. Martin wins race 3, and convincingly so, from McLennan in second place. Then it's Rory Smith picking up third on the last lap, and Spike Colbecker in fourth place, with Jamie Sharp eventually holding on to fifth ahead of Brendan Lee and Jonathan Brown. And Jamie Thorburn, Morgan Quinn and John Svensson round out the top 10. And Carter Williams, Adrian Laysack, McPherson, Jeanson, Woods and Quartermain for James Clark with DNF.
I don't
mega
know what else
weekend
to
as
say
always
with
from
it.
the
3
National
out of
Formula
3.
Fords.
Every
Stay tuned for
single
more.
time you've shown us you have the pace, you have the concentration, the determination. Is there anything more we can expect?
Not drinking anyway. I can't open my bottle to save my life, but what a weekend. As you can tell, I'm very emotional. You know, that last race for me was the drive of my career probably, and the way it ended, I'm so happy with the team. I'm so happy with everyone being here, and I'm happy to be at the circuit. You know, it's my first time racing here, and I've really enjoyed it. But yeah, what a race! You know, starting 6th, I didn't really know what to take into it. I thought, well, I've had 2 wins, and you know, I'd like to bring the car home safe. But I made a good start, and then after that, I kept making positions, and I thought, well, I've got a chance here. Safety car split the race up a little bit, but yeah, it was nice to get out behind Jamie. Jamie drove well out front. Big congratulations to him. But yeah, managed to make a good move on the first corner twice, and yeah, certainly I'm over the moon.